The Indian automotive sector got off to a great start with the Auto Expo 2012, brandishing close to 30 new cars, believe it or not, with a third coming from the SUV and MPV stable. Now, this is a drastic change from the 2010 Expo, which had fewer cars on display and a larger focus on small hatchbacks. But one wonders where the auto sector is getting its optimism from, considering rising interest rates, fluctuating fuel prices and negative global economic sentiments. So when a record 30 car launches were announced earlier this year, one wonders if the auto manufacturers actually thought through their bravado. With consumer sentiment at not such a high, A, why did they bother? And B, now that they have, what's the game plan? Tara Kapoor finds out.
2011 saw the highest retail petrol prices, a whopping 34% increase since deregulation in 2010. Interest rates have been revised 13 times since March 2010 and is currently at 13 to 14% for new car loans. And India, one of the world's largest car markets, recently saw sales plummet by 24% in October 2011. The biggest slump in more than a decade. Put all these factors together and there's no hiding that 2011 was anything but optimistic for the automotive sector. And that impact is trickling into 2012 as well. If SIAM is to be believed, car sales growth in the next fiscal will be around 2%, a big downer from the 14% growth in 2011 and the massive 31% in 2010. Yet, the Auto Expo 2012 seems to have shown no indications of ground reality, with as many as 30 car launches ready to take on the Indian roads in the coming year. But the interesting trend this Expo, apart from the record number of launches, was the focus on premium SUV and MPV segments. And here's why.
While we are dominant in the small car market, we do believe that our leadership in volumes and in market share can continue only if we are able to get additional volumes from segments where we were not present. And therefore the need for us to get into segments like MPV and SUV.
MUV definitely, I think, has a good future in Indian market. If you analyze the segments growth in the last year, I think the slowest growth was in passenger car and one of the highest growth was in MUVs.
One of the major fallbacks for auto manufacturers was the fact that the decision to launch these cars at the 2012 Auto Expo was made almost a year and a half ago, a time when the Indian car market was truly booming. And even though the market looks bleak, most auto majors are forced to go ahead with their launches and are counting on 2013 to boost sales.
When you plan for launches, the launches have to be frozen at least, I would say, 2 to 3 years ahead of time. Otherwise, we cannot decide overnight that, we are ready to launch something next month. So that's not possible in automobile industry. So anything which goes on launch is planned very much in advance.
As a manufacturer, the biggest challenge that we face in such a scenario, wherein our forecast, the entire industry forecast, beginning of the year was that we will grow by about 10 to 12%, and current forecast is that we'll be kind of flattish. Consumers have not shelved the plans to buy. They've just postponed the plans to buy.
The biggest challenge faced by auto manufacturers is the fact that it's very difficult for them to adjust their launch period by more than a few months. Keeping these factors in mind, what do these auto majors need to do to ensure their new launches survive the slowdown?
There is a short-term challenge of not being able to pick up, the volumes not being able to pick up as much as the original plans would have been. Which obviously is a challenge from an investment perspective and the amount of effort you put in the cars. But I mean, the way I would look at it is like each of these firms, be it the existing ones like in the incumbents like Hyundai's or the Tatas or the Marutis, or the completely new set of players like Renault, Nissan, Volkswagen, each of them have India clearly on their roadmap. And they expect India to be one of the major contributors in their car sales, say 10 years from now, and each of their boards have signed $1 billion check for the Indian operations. So the way I would look at it is, yes, it will create a short-term ripple in terms of sales not being able to catch up as per plans, but if you have to believe in the long-term story of India.
automakers such as Hyundai and Skoda have decided to put themselves out there during these challenging times. They're in fact the few car manufacturers that have decided to increase ad spends and ensure that their decibel levels are at the highest in an otherwise dull year. Hyundai, for instance, is going ahead with the launch of the new Sonata version that is expected to hit the roads at the end of Feb. The idea is to build curiosity, increase footfalls in showrooms, and ensure that when the consumer is ready to buy, the Sonata is top of mind. Skoda is also adopting a similar philosophy with the Fabia Scout. The company is in fact taking it a step further and is planning to go in for a complete brand makeover.
Definitely would consider at least 2 models every year for the next couple of years. I think it helps us to keep excitement around Hyundai brand and also create, gives us an opportunity to get more and more footfalls in our showroom where people do come for one model and not necessarily even if that they'll maybe go for some other model and their interest in Hyundai brands go up with new launches.
This year will for us a very loud year. There will be also much more communication happening. We changed with Skoda the new power of Skoda worldwide. We are also adapting this in India. So we are changing from obsessed with quality to simply clever. We have more budget than the year before. We think communication is the best answer to a sluggish market.
Maruti and Nissan, on the other hand, have decided to wait it out for a couple of months and keep a low profile until consumer sentiment is back on track.
The success of a new model depends a lot on how it does initially. And that success then builds upon itself and it gives rise to even more sales, which is, generally as a thumb rule probably right. We would be much happier to launch the product at a time when the market is good because, it gives that initial fillip to sales and which gives further, help to the product.
Just for some perspective, let's flash back to the 2008 slowdown. The 2008 Auto Expo boasted of a total of 9 cars compared to 30 in 2012. The Jetta, Punto and Logan, all launched in 2008, were a nightmare of sorts in the Indian market. So much so that even when the market did pick up in 2010-11, their sales remained muted when compared to their segment leaders. The Fabia and Captiva, on the other hand, were forced to drastically slash prices to boost sales. Even the darling of Auto Expo 2008, the Tata Nano, has had anything but a flying start. Do the math and you'll see that launches made in the year of the slowdown recorded a whopping 66% failure rate. 2012 is, believe it or not, poised to witness one of the worst global meltdowns. And given that backdrop, car manufacturers may need a miracle or two to get their cars to speed on the Indian roads.